What I've noticed is that I don't have any trouble teaching people how to access that level of mind that's that intuitive, deeper level of knowing. The problem is trusting it. People go into deep states and they have this immediate contact with who they are. So you're essentially experiencing yourself, the medicine that you have inside of you. I say the medicine is in us. We actually are the medicine. You're not the problem.
Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in to the Love Conquers Fear podcast. This has been a really, really busy week. By the time you see this essay will be a little bit dated, but Dario Amodei, who is the co-founder and CEO of Entrainment, came out with a really foundational essay for AI called The Adolescence of Technology. And this is probably the best essay I've read to date, which lays out the risk of AI and the ways that it could be used or really run out of control. It comes with the credibility of someone who really is running away with it at this point for the AI frontier model battle, I guess you could say, between ChatGPT and other models for the business side. One of the ways to think about, the two biggest AI foundation companies, which are OpenAI and Anthropic, and Anthropic is largely former OpenAI people, including Dario, is that Anthropic looks like they're trying to become the Microsoft of the frontier model space, really focusing on business and business applications. Anthropic Cowork came out recently, which allows Anthropic to be used by everyone in an organization in all different job functions to help them automate all types of work, which a lot of people have an aversion to that word automation. Does that mean job replacement? Yes, it does mean that in some ways, but it also means that the barrier to creativity is being shattered. There's a lot of drudgery that people go through in work to get to the creative stuff. And I've long held that as we approach the age of abundance for all, we're going to enter into the Renaissance 2.0 period for humanity with an explosion in creativity. And that is what Anthropic is really focused on in the business environment. The other thing that I've laid out, many times before is that there will be millions of new startups as that barrier to creativity is shattered. Because each individual's capabilities to create businesses are greatly enhanced. People have looked at me sometimes in past speeches as a guy that's been programming since he was 7, et cetera, and say, well, that's why he's where he's at. And that's partially true for where the world was. But I always remind people, even back in those days, pre-AI, that, hey, you can get a technology co-founder and really run through walls together as you're trying to build something great, really change the world for the better. But now those barriers are being shattered, and it's opening the aperture for the number of people that can do amazing things. I wrote about Dario Amodei in October of 2024 when he came out with his very optimistic essay on AI called Machines of Loving Grace. Which is a shout out to a historical title back in the day. And I cover all of that in that essay that I wrote. I'll put a link in the show notes. But this new essay, it's 36 pages long, on the adolescence of technology, really is his prayer for all of us to say, look, I'm going to be really honest with you all on how I see the risk as the CEO of Anthropic. And I really would encourage you to dig into it. I'll put a link in the show notes. It is a very foundational piece. He's seen the acceleration happen at a pace where the next 1 to 2 years from now are really going to be foundational. I've long held that the next 10 to 15 years are the most important in humanity's whole entire existence, as we decide, and it really is a choice, are we going to manifest a world of abundance for everyone on this planet, or are we going to continue to subscribe to the zero-sum power-based, fear-based, scarcity mindset games. And it's hard for humanity to overcome that because we're receiving a ton of programming. We inherit that programming. And there's just a lot for us to overcome as we transcend the amygdala and allow the heart to conquer the head, or love to conquer fear as we unify. And I've written about that in my science fiction novella, The Lattice, which you can see me read for free online as a gift to all the podcast subscribers on episode 27. I came out with that on January 1st about how humanity could unite so we make it to that age of abundance for all. So that's a really big piece of news. On the book front, I continue to work my way through The Seed of the Soul for the second time. As I said, this year, 2026, is all about embodiment for me. That's my theme for the year. Last year was all about the inner journey. I read over 55 books. So I'm revisiting some of the best of. One of the things that's really interesting is that I didn't do last year is I wanted to see what Gary Zukav is up to. And I'm going to ask him to be on this podcast. I haven't yet, so I don't know what he'll say. But I know that Eben Alexander is coming on, the author of Proof of Heaven, which was a really big eye-opener for me, the most transcendent near-death experience documented, and a really famous author, an amazing human being. But I decided, hey, let's see what Gary's up to, and started to tune in to several podcasts he's been on. I'll include a link to one in here called Know Thyself, which is a really, really good interview with him. And what I learned in that, because I always wondered in The Seed of the Soul, like, how did he get this knowledge about our soul? It's so incredibly poignant, and it just rings so true as you read the book. I mean, it's really just completely divine. I'd highly encourage you all to read it, especially listen to it on Audible, where Oprah Winfrey reads the 25th anniversary preface. The whole book is read by Gary Zukav. You can really hear the emotion and awe in his voice as he reads it. And, he's now coming forward and saying that it was channeled through this entity called Genesis. And that ultimately he was transcribing what he was channeling, which reminds me of A Course of Miracles, or A Course in Miracles, which is a channel, the modern day channeling of messages from Jesus Christ to humanity and on the way that we should live. John Mackey and many others are on that. John Mackey was on episode 30 of this podcast. He's the founder of Whole Foods, and we talked about that I have a lot of other friends that are into that are in study groups. So, that channeling phenomenon, and I've talked about the law of one, the raw contact, on this podcast too, which was a channel from a higher level alien intelligence that's a collective, and there's a lot of really profound messages in that book too. I still don't exactly know what to think about that one, but there's a lot in it that rings true. And the law of one is essentially that love must conquer fear, that the prime creator wants us all to embody love and selfless service, which repeats through all the spiritual traditions. So that's the intro. I'm going to go ahead and get right into this episode because you won't want to miss this. I have Paige Britt on, and this has been a long time in the making. Thanks so much for being here, Paige. Yeah,
Brett, it's so nice to be here.
Yeah, what an honor to have you on.
Well, thank you. I'm so pleased to be a part of what you're doing. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I should give a shout out here to Gabby Poehler.
Yeah.
Who used to be the head fundraiser for the psychedelics research center at UT Austin.
That's right.
Which is how we originally met. And now she's on to lots of other great initiatives at UT, including one where she's working with you to hook you and participants up to brain-computer interfaces to discuss your work. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
That's going to be really exciting.
It's very exciting.
Yeah. So the way I met you is Gabby was like, you have to come in here and experience this. And I know you're a pioneer of this field, Relational Awakening.
Yeah.
Why don't we just start with what Relational Awakening is? Because the experience I had with you was really pretty profound, and it wasn't an ideal place to have it because we were in the Psychedelics Research Center. We were in an office.
Like a boardroom, like an office.
Yeah, there was a lot of noise around,
That's
like,
right.
you know, but it still was really deep and meditative. And I remember just manifesting so much love.
That's right.
Which that happens every time I meditate, by the way. Every time I meditate, I went to a silent meditation retreat at the beginning of this year. And every time I meditate, I start to just radiate a tremendous amount of gratitude.
Yeah.
I asked a practitioner about that recently for Siddha Maha Yoga, which is another form of meditation I've been studying with this mentor, Guruji, who's a practitioner in that. And I asked him about that, and I said, why is it always me radiating this much to other people? Like, should I also be concerned that I'm not radiating as much love to myself? And he gave a beautiful answer, and it literally moved me to tears. He said, well, you would not have the ability to radiate love to so many if you didn't also have so much love in your heart.
Yeah.
Which means that you are embodying love, including for yourself.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so beautiful. It resonated so much. But, you know, I've talked about it a lot on this podcast. That love in my heart comes from my mom, from
That's right.
being age 7, and her really believing in me and learning how to program with me and giving me that gift of non-prejudice to allow me to do that my whole childhood. And eventually it turned into this career and this the amazing outcomes we've had, and now being able to do this with Love Conquers Fear.
Yeah. And you know what I really remember about you, Brett, even though we were in that noisy office surrounded by so many people, and is that when we shifted, and so now I'm starting about Relational Awakening. Relational Awakening is helping people access expanded states of consciousness, which are amplified states of love.
Yeah.
Expanded consciousness is an amplification, really, of connection.
Yeah.
And so we sat together in that office space or boardroom, and we went into this expanded state. And the first thing you started to do was transmit that to people in your life. So you immediately started talking about your wife and your rabbi and your friends. And I would say a few weeks later, I was in this room and I met your wife and your friends and your rabbi.
Yep.
So your first instinct always is to give it away.
That's true.
It's an act of generosity.
So true.
That's the hallmark of you, Brett.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. It means a lot. And just to be clear to the listeners here, people watching this, I wasn't saying anything out loud. Like, you were reading that somehow, you know, we were kind of on a voyage in consciousness together.
That's right.
As I was in that state. And, you know, I wanted to have friends experience it. So I hosted you here actually in this room.
In this room.
And I wanted to get a session in, but I basically gave it away to everybody else.
You did give it away to everyone else.
But I no regrets. I'm happy that I did, and it was they had really great experiences.
So the way I language it, and I stick to very generic or language because different people come to me and they are from different spiritual backgrounds. So what I say is that I help people access this field of shared consciousness.
Yeah.
So you were referring to that. So I shift, and when I shift, there's an invitation to the being in front of me to shift as well. And when I say shift, what I mean is to loosen your grip on your individual consciousness. Yeah. So we loosen that up a little bit, we shift, we go into this expanded level of mind, which is an expanded level of heart.
Yeah.
And then we connect from there. And then things begin to get a little interesting.
Yeah.
And what I mean is reality can get rather bendy at that point. And so people have experiences that are not unlike psychedelics and or deep states of meditation. So what I'm introducing people to through what I call Relational Awakening is actually not anything new. I think accessing these expanded states of mind and heart are really what make us human. But what's maybe unique or novel is that it's transmitted from one person to another.
Right.
And so often people have been experiencing these states maybe through deep breath work, or maybe they've done long periods of meditation, or maybe they've done some physical activity that's altered their consciousness, or they've altered it through a pharmaceutical or a plant medicine.
Right.
And what I'm doing is, in like a matter of moments, just transmitting that. And so the veil is one way of thinking about it. The veil of our separation is lifted immediately.
Right. Right.
And then what transpires next really depends on the person. And so what transpired with you was it's very personal. It was very much like who you are, that urge or that drive toward generosity. Other people have other experiences depending on who and where they are in their life, who they are, where they are.
Right. Right.
So people will have feelings of deep love and connection. They may see or sense people who have passed. They might see lights, or they might just have some kind of direct knowing of some deep truth that has maybe eluded them in their everyday life.
Yeah.
So all of those things are available, and I just transmit them.
Yeah.
And people pick them up or pick up that transmission because we're made that way.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack there. I mean, the last year on this, what I'll call a soul quest, this reading so many books, it was really to try to decode our reality, which I don't think it's fully possible to ever decode it. But there are certain things that are repeating patterns, whether they're in quantum physics or, studies of consciousness or spirituality. And these things really matter because there's all this talk of us being on the cusp of inventing, sentient machines that'll be every bit as conscious as we are. And I'm curious, how you view our reality. I mean, like one of the things that I've seen through the study of ancient spiritual text and trying to look at the unification between them is that they're all rooted in love conquering fear.
Yeah.
That is a common root. And the reason I think it's important to look for a common root is that there is all this human-created scaffolding, I'll say, that sits on top of religion that can really be programming us for separation. For example, the caste system is in the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is an amazing read, but it starts out with the caste system. That's actually towards the beginning. That
cultural overlay is present.
Yeah, and but the rest of it is just so good, that it's worth reading the whole thing, and the setup of it being on a battlefield with Krishna and Arjuna, and Krishna being the embodiment of God. And I'll never forget the part of it where Arjuna asks Krishna to show him God, and he does, and then he's like, okay, stop. But that part, read by Stephen Mitchell, is translated by him. You can feel like your heart just accelerate during that part. It is really, it's amazing. But, no matter what it is in these spiritual traditions, it seems like our actual reality that we come from is one of love and light. And in this world of form, this earth school, as Gary Zukav would call it in The Seed of the Soul, we're constantly separated from that. And it seems like we're separated in a lot of ways to force us to love and rediscover it, to learn how to be better and better human beings. So it's like a tough teacher, as opposed to just giving us the answers on the quiz, so that we can constantly manifest more, and therefore our souls can grow lifetime to lifetime as we ascend, to eventually just re-merge with God. And I'm just, there's lots of books that I've decoded on this podcast, like Journey of Souls by Michael Newton. I'm just curious, like how you view it, given the the ability that you have, and how do you view our reality?
Well, so I would just say that I work with people. I actually have people all over the world. I work with people one-on-one. I've actually stopped working one-on-one just to teach, but I have people all over the world that I've sat with in this capacity, and it doesn't matter what background they're from. Like when we shift into this field of shared consciousness, there's an immediate recognition of our true nature. And our true nature is one of deep connection, wisdom, intelligence, and love. And so there's this, we hear, at least I hear the word non-dual quite a bit. And at a very practical level, non-dual consciousness is the consciousness of oneness. And so there's nothing abstract or conceptual when we sit together in a relational awakening. There's a direct experience of it. And people language it differently. So that's that cultural overlay that you were referring to in those, all of those different wisdom texts. So they language it differently, but the experience of it is the same. And there's an opening that happens in the heart. And the mind actually, so the ordinary mind, we'll say that, the ordinary mind just powers down. So that constant chatter, that constant, I would say, drive of what about me? So a lot of our actions are one that are patterned in what, how do I take care of myself, which there's some, we care deeply about the animal body, but then there's kind of like that egoic drive, mine, me and mine. So that actually begins to slow down. And then what happens is that there's this opening up of the we, and people know it immediately. And the outgrowth of that is an ethic that is, just like you said, grounded in love. And that mind-me drive is the one that's grounded in fear.
Right.
And so people have the experience of it. It's life-changing because it's a source of wisdom, and wisdom heals. It's a medicine.
Right.
And so
it's a source of eternal wisdom.
It's eternal wisdom.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what relational awakening is, and I call it relational because in our contemporary society, and I would say probably through the ages as well, is that we've developed many practices that are individual in nature, and they're wonderful. So I want to say very clearly, keep it up. Do your meditation practices.
Right.
The practices that I teach are all relational. So you're never alone doing a practice. You're always with another person, because access to this field of shared consciousness is amplified when two or more are gathered. Right. And that's a piece of eternal wisdom as well. Yeah. So I teach people how to do this shift. So again, it's the slowing down of the ordinary level of mind and the opening up or accessing of this expanded level of mind, which is also expanded level of heart. So that's the shift. And you do it with another person, and it happens quicker. Yeah. It's easier, and it's amplified when you're in pairs. And so that it's a whole path that is relational in nature. So there aren't any individual practices that are taught. Yeah. And so the initial transmission happens with me. I'll just shift. And the amazing thing is how easy it is, because I don't know. This is where the research is going to come in, where we're so excited. Right. I don't know what's going on in the brain. I suspect, and I'll just use my lay language, but that there's a pathway that is opened. And so they're like, oh, there it is. I've been searching, and I've been opening or accessing that pathway through these beautiful spiritual practices. And here's another one. Right. And this one is a little faster. I would say it's accelerated and it's amplified.
Yeah.
And so when that pathway is opened in, through the initial transmission, then we practice keeping it open.
Right.
And then it just becomes the new normal.
Mm-hmm. And, going back in time for you in this lifetime, like, when did you realize you had this skill to help shift people? Because you first, I'm sure, realized you had the skill to shift yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. You're absolutely correct. I started shifting myself when I was 4, which might sound amazing. And I just want to say it is not. I would access unity consciousness when I was very, very young. And I don't think that's abnormal. I think we come into this world wired for connection in this undifferentiated field of intelligence and love. I mean, we just pop out.
Right.
That's our infant consciousness.
Right.
Right. So, and then we began to develop a separate sense of self, and we could say that there's these different conditionings or imprinting that happen, and that open, connected, expansive level of mind and heart begins to get contracted or constricted. So I was accessing this when I was 4, but again, I think that's our standard install.
Right.
But I did deliberate practices because I was very curious. And I actually have a children's book that I wrote. It's published by Scholastic Press, which is a very traditional press.
Yeah.
And the book is called Why Am I Me? Because that was the inquiry that I had when I was very young. And I would look at somebody, like I'm looking at you, and I'd be like, well, why am I me and you're you? And why am I not you and you're not me? It's a little mind puzzle that would actually, much like, say, a koan, would kind of glitch my brain. To be honest, I was only 4, so I didn't have a lot going on up there anyway.
You didn't have great words to talk about it.
I didn't have a lot of content.
Right.
So it would glitch it.
Yeah.
And I would have this feeling where the me would just fall away. And I would go into what felt like, to my very young self, like a cosmic expanse. And so then I would come back into the me, but I knew that I wasn't really me. And so I would walk around with that sense of simultaneously being me and not me. And there wasn't anything frightening about it. It was actually kind of exciting.
Oh yeah, no, it's incredibly exciting when you see that our reality is actually rooted in love. It's the most beautiful feeling you can have.
That's right.
To see that.
And I remember being quite young, and I was born in the late 60s, and so the whole space was really opening up in terms of like us going to the moon and that kind of space.
Right.
And I remember seeing pictures and saying to my mother that I had been there to this outer space. And my mom said, oh, no, that's outer space. And I remember saying, but I went through my belly button and to outer space. And so these questions of inner and outer, they began to, I used to play with them a little bit until, again, that glitch would happen. And I think that is, again, one of the fundamental teachings of like non-dual spiritual traditions, is that there inner space and outer space, there isn't. There's no separation.
All right.
And so I realized that when I was quite young. And again, I want to stress, I don't think that's such a big deal. I think maybe what's interesting is that I remember it.
Yeah.
So that's when I started doing that. And then, I turned 5 and I went to school.
Right.
And that sense of separation came on strong because, I went through all the normal phases of human development, the I, me, mine. And then I had to unlearn them all again and return exactly where I was when I was 4. And I think that is a very, I would say, common spiritual path, is to return to our natural state, but also to have the wisdom that we gained through our life, but not let it cut us off or disconnect us from the fundamental nature of who we are, which is like evident from the moment we arrive on this planet.
When did you start to turn back to it and say, I want to return to that 4-year-old version of me. And just for context there, there's a great book by Jack Kornfield called After the Ecstasy, the Laundry. You know this book? And he's talking primarily about Buddhism, but it doesn't really matter. It's the same. It's all the same. The unification of this root.
Right.
But he really shares in that book how the spiritual path takes a lot of work.
It does.
It really does. And this deprogramming oneself, Taro talked about that on the episode. He's the founder and CEO of Four Sigmatic. He talked about his spiritual awakening and how much deprogramming he had to do.
Yeah.
That's where I got the book recommendation of Awareness by Anthony DeMello. Out of 130 books he read, that was his favorite. That book is all about waking up. And I reread that book at the beginning of this year in preparation and throughout the silent meditation retreat that I went on. But I'm just curious, like for you, when did you turn back to it? And then was it challenging for you? Because we do have this world of form kind of test all the time. I'll call them test. Whether it's the constant programming pushed at us that we could choose to either tune into or not. It's kind of hard to avoid. But you need to develop that inner strength to not just fall into reprogramming.
Yeah, I would say that I continued on my path, and I felt like I was really searching for that 4-year-old for many years. It felt quite distant.
Yeah.
I actually went to seminary because I had these questions, obviously, of sort of ultimate nature. And so I went to seminary. So I have a master's in theology, which is an incredible exercise. Like I loved the life of the mind is precious and important. It's just not the ultimate. But I didn't find the answers there. And then I had an experience after I graduated from seminary where the deprogramming was actually ripped away. I had a very traumatic experience. Somebody that I loved very dearly died from suicide.
Oh.
Yeah, it was. And
like a friend of yours?
Yes, someone, actually my fiance, Brett.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Gosh, I never knew Paige. I'm so sorry.
Yes, it was devastating. I was in my late 20s. And so this is a loss that I know very intimately. And it ripped away the deprogramming. And the world opened up, and I returned to that open, expansive state that I had when I was young. But it was very destabilizing because I had had this great loss occur in conjunction with that. And so I had to learn how to stabilize from this loss. So I did many healing modalities, therapy. I also did somatic practices. I had a Hakomi therapist, and I had acupuncture, and I did all the things in order to work really directly with that trauma. But I also knew that experience was a spiritual event. As strange and as that might sound, like there was a spiritual component to that terrible loss. And I wanted to know more about that. And so I began to meditate. And to be honest, I would never even say that what I was doing was meditation. It was so simple. And I would just sit just like this in the mornings. I would journal what was on my heart, and then I would follow my breath into my belly for about 20 minutes. And that practice began to grow and grow and grow until I became more serious about it. I actually went to a monastery once for about 3 months and really entered into the contemplative life. And I found my way back to that 4-year-old, but it was just glimpses, short glimpses. And so I continued on in a very normal life, married, working and, had a household and all the busy things that anyone else would have. But I kept up that simple practice. And then I had a desire to write a children's book. And that was a really strong drive in me. And so I would sit every morning in meditation, and I eventually, and this is like, don't try this at home. I quit my really good job to write this children's book. And I was so overcome with doubt and the discursive mind and all the negative things that it would say to me as I was trying to write this book. Like, it really brought up all of that programming. It's a very intense thing to write a novel. And this children's book is like 200 pages or something, like the Harry Potter level of like for 8-year-olds.
Right.
And so
what's the name of this?
It's called The Lost Track of Time.
The Lost Track of Time.
And I had been working in the corporate world and was beset by this drive, this programming that our Western culture has, and it's probably spread across the globe, of this drive to be productive, that my worth was related to my productivity, and that I had to achieve results, and those results had to be something that were trackable on paper, and that who I was what I did. So those are some really strong messages that we receive. And that programming had taken a hold in me. And so writing this book, I had to deprogram all of that. And the way I did it, and I can look back on it and see what I was doing. At the moment, I didn't know. But if I was writing from my ordinary mind, the noise inside my head was louder than the narrative that was trying to get across. And so I had to learn how to shift. And I learned how to shift into an expanded level of mind that was so creative and had so much potential. And it was, I would say, psychedelic. I mean, I actually have never done psychedelics, so I'm just using that word. But for what you understand, colorful and alive and imaginative, and anything was possible. And the story was, that's where the story came from. It didn't come from my ordinary level of mind. And so in order to write the book that I felt such a strong desire to write, I had to shift into this other level of mind. And if you do that, shifting, it's like breaking rocks, actually. People don't want to hear that. They want a quick fix. But I worked on that book for about 3 years, and I was shifting, and eventually it just stuck. It just stayed. But it took time. And then what happened was I realized that all of that was not about the book. It was about learning how to access this expanded level of mind. And the book itself is actually about that. It's about a little girl who goes into this place called the realm of possibility. People immediately started coming to me for teaching. And literally my first quote-unquote client was somebody I met at a bus stop. Because that expanded level of mind, people can feel it. When you're transmitting it, it actually feels like freedom. And so people started coming to me, and I eventually just had to get, I had a office that I shared with a therapist. I was like, can I just have this on Fridays? Because I could not actually handle all the people that were coming to me, and they were coming at the grocery store. They're coming to me at a coffee shop. I didn't know them. And I realized this level of mind is transmittable. Because I literally had someone back into me at a light, and we both got out of the car just to make sure the cars were okay. And she picked up on it and was like, wanted to meet with me. And so there was no interest in actually having office hours, but I had to. And then just seeing people on Friday turned into Thursday and Friday, it turned into Wednesday, Thursday, and then I had a full-time practice, really helping people to access this, and then training them to stabilize their access to this level of mind so that it became their everyday level of mind. That's it.
Wow. And now you've expanded into being a teacher for
Yes.
helping other people, realize, I'm going to call it a gift, but I think you would say, and I love that you're so rooted in humility. That's one of the things I've always loved about you since I first met you. But I'm going to call it a gift, even though everybody has this ability. Like that innately, I think you would say we all have
I absolutely
this
do
ability
say that.
because we're all part of consciousness.
That's right.
So we're, really 2025 was such an exciting year for the discussion of non-local consciousness. You had Dan Brown, The Secret of Secrets,
Yeah.
which is meticulously documented, all the scientific studies he refers to in the novel are all real studies, and he discloses that at the beginning. You had Annika Harris with Lights On. She's married to Sam Harris, and she concludes with consciousness is fundamental.
Yes.
You had the telepathy tape season 2 come out, which was really, really good, about all different means of non-local consciousness, whether it's plants or animals or children. I had Michael Collins on Love Conquers Fear, who's an amazing documentary filmmaker. He's making a film on intuition, which is the art of living schools, which are one of the schools that they discuss on the last episode of the telepathy tapes, season 2. And this is happening with the rise of AI. And I don't think it's, I don't believe actually in coincidences. I think that everything is part of a divine cosmic play. And there's so many synchronicities happening across 8.2 billion, human beings in the world. And the computational aspect of that is beyond comprehension. And I think that's happening all over the universe. But I've glimpsed that at times through either journeys or meditations, and I can just glimpse it for a moment, and then it overwhelms my mind because it's just too much.
It's a lot.
Yeah. But, I just see the synchronicities daily in my life, and that's a lot. And, I really believe things are happening for a reason. So those two things coming together, maybe we can talk about that later in the podcast, but just to stay on point, how do you teach this to people? Where do you even start when you teach this with people?
So you're right. So about 2 years ago, I began teaching it. And I would say last year, I just closed down my private practice. I don't work with individuals anymore, just simply because I don't have the space in my calendar. But I teach it through transmission. And another way of saying that is through entrainment. So what I mean by entrainment is, let's think about this on a very physical level. I don't know if you've ever been to a yoga class, but I go to a yoga class, and whatever the teacher is saying, I'm paying attention to about 20% of what they're saying, but the other 80% is me actually making these sort of synchronizing with their body in order to learn the move. It's not so much the verbal, it's just me in training with them. And you see that too, like if you've ever walked along with somebody and eventually you begin to fall into step, right? So physical entrainment is something we're all very familiar with. Well, I entrain another person's consciousness. And so when I shift, their consciousness shifts. It's an immediate invitation. And so transmission, I'm transmitting this level of mind. And whether or not their mind is like, oh, this isn't possible, I don't know how to do that. And that's not the level of mind I'm talking to. So they shift. And there's an immediate sense.
And when they shift, they can then help others shift.
So what they have to learn how to do is stabilize access. So that initial step is through entrainment. So I'm curious, even in this moment, what is your experience? What is your experience in this moment, Brett?
I'm feeling a shift with you.
Yeah, that's it. What's that shift feel like?
It's a little bit disorienting. It reminds me of the time that I was with you. I don't know if I told you this afterwards, but you became kind of like a Buddha figure in front of me. But yeah, it feels disorienting, expansive.
It's expansive.
Yeah.
And expansive.
Like I can feel like this radiating energy out. Yeah.
That's right. And people use many words, but expansion is a very typical one. Mm-hmm. And because consciousness is non-local, Brett, I'm even going to invite anyone watching this mm-hmm. to experience the shift. Because mm-hmm. it's not localized in time, it's not localized in space. Mm-hmm. So anyone who's listening or watching can actually shift along with us.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's disorienting mm-hmm. because you're shifting your basis of operation from this sort of smaller function to a more expansive one. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing I do after the shift is teach people how to stabilize. Mm-hmm. Because yes, we're so habituated to being in this separate narrative self.
Right.
We have a subject-object orientation, which, by the way, I'm all for. I don't want you to step outside in an expanded state and get run over by a bus, you know. Mm-hmm. So we recognize that that is a reality. Mm-hmm. But then there's this other level of mind. And when you begin to stabilize your access to it, you begin to know, you begin to love, mm-hmm. you begin to see and sense and experience the world mm-hmm. in a very different way.
Yeah.
And the sense of separation falls away. And what's in its place is a feeling of connection. Mm-hmm. So when you ask me how, this is how.
Yeah.
So I'm entraining your consciousness to mine. And at this point, it's so silly for me to say my consciousness and your consciousness. Mm-hmm. Those are the words we have. So I'm entraining your consciousness with mine, and now it's in ours. Mm-hmm. And then I teach people how to begin to deprogram or let go of the patterns of belief and behavior mm-hmm. that really get in the way of them accessing this.
Yeah.
And so it's a whole series of teachings. And the beautiful thing about it is that it's taught in community. Mm-hmm. So what would happen next is you would have a practice partner, and they would have been initiated. They also would have had this experience of this pathway being illuminated. Mm-hmm. And you can access it together with much more speed. So you practice.
Right.
And then it becomes a new way of knowing and being.
Yeah.
And what's so fun about these practices is that you're having a shared experience.
Right.
And so when you talked about Michael Collins and teaching people to access their intuition, which I'm so happy about because mm-hmm. it's a really profound teaching to be able to live from your intuition.
Oh yeah.
What I've noticed is that I don't have any trouble teaching people how to access that level of mind that's that intuitive, deeper level of knowing. Mm-hmm. The problem is trusting it, mm-hmm. not accessing it.
Right.
So when you're with another person who actually can validate that they are also having this experience of reality, your trust grows. Mm-hmm. And so learning in a community where other people are accessing this level of mind on a regular basis is essential. Mm-hmm. So I teach these classes. I have an intro class actually starting in February that's online, and it's just a short, hour and a half a week. Mm-hmm. You can also have like a deep dive into it if you're like, you know what, I really want to learn this. And I would do that in person. And I also have an online community, and the people have practice groups. There's something happening almost every day. Mm. So you're dipping into this over and over and over again, and then it becomes normal.
Yeah.
And I think it is normal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, it's, I felt that, again, it took me actually back to that same moment of us being together.
Right.
And it's this expansion, and then, you asked me to close my eyes.
Yes.
In that, and that's when I just immediately went into that deeply meditative state.
And it happened Almost immediately.
Almost immediately, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. It's you can transmit it.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm teaching people.
Yeah.
And for that experience, which as a healer is so important, that you get to touch directly your own true nature. Mm-hmm. So I really amplify it. And this is another level of training. Like if you really want to learn how to master this, and some people can who want to devote themselves, so I have a pathway. It's like Relational Awakening in everyday life. This is just where you live and love from. Mm-hmm. If you want to be a healer, you learn how to amplify it to the point where people go into those deep states. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did with you, is just really amplify it. Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting because you can learn how to actually do that. Mm-hmm. And so people go into deep states and they have this immediate contact with who they are. Yeah. And so you're essentially experiencing yourself.
Right.
The medicine that you have inside of you. Mm-hmm. So I say, our kind of tagline at Relational Awakening is, the medicine is in us.
Right.
We actually are the medicine.
Yeah.
You're not the problem.
Yeah.
No one is. Maybe the discursive mind is creating some suffering. It's kicking up a lot of dust.
Right.
That's getting in the way. But when you drop into your fundamental nature, it is whole.
That is the best utility for psychedelic medicine, is it essentially takes people into what their true nature is. It gets their default mode network to kind of shut down.
That's right.
As Michael Pollan wrote about in How to Change Your Mind, or in the documentary on Netflix of that name. He's coming out with a book now on non-local consciousness.
Hear.
Yeah,
so fun.
Yeah, which would be great. That'll be a great kickoff to this year. The neat thing about your practice is that it doesn't require any medicine at all. It just creates that natural shift.
And you can't say, "Oh, this plant medicine did it." It's you, actually.
Yeah.
Or it's us.
The most important element when you do psychedelic medicine is you. It's your soul. And, everybody talks about set and setting. And, the set, of course, is just where you're at, the medicine that's used. That's the setting. The set is you. It's your own emotional regulation, your own, I guess I would say, your advancement in this lifetime or from prior lifetimes to, get in that state of surrender and expansion. And I've seen, the same medicine have very, very different effects on people depending on what state of emotional regulation they were in.
Yeah.
So
that's the same experience that I have when I was working with individuals. Mm-hmm. It's very different depending on who I was working with, when they would, in essence, receive that medicine. Mm-hmm. It acted upon them in very different ways, or they had access to different types of wisdom. I'm
curious, what it's like to be, I know this is going to sound like the separation, but I'm curious what it's like to be you. When you listen to something like the telepathy tapes, what's your experience of that? Are you just like, well, this just totally makes sense, and this is the way I've been living, and there's no surprises here? Or is there some, element of it where you're like, oh, that's really cool about plant-based consciousness and some people's ability to have that connection with plants?
I'm just thrilled. I mean, I feel a sense of excitement. One of the things that I really love about you is you have this unbridled optimism. Mm-hmm. And I feel that too. I feel so much excitement. And so when I listen to those, I feel wonder. Mm-hmm. And there isn't anything about me that says, oh, this is old hat. Mm-hmm. I have my hand on the elephant of reality of
Right.
this on the trunk, and they have their hand on the tail. And,
Right.
and I love getting to learn more about what's happening, in the world of form to kind of uncover and reveal this.
Yeah.
I just feel excitement.
I love that you said that, because I do describe it to people sometimes that, whatever God is, and however people want to interpret God, whether they just say that's consciousness or that's intelligence of the universe, or however they want to talk about that. And I know that for some people it's a loaded term because of religious dogma and the Crusades and all types of things that have happened in the past in the name of God, which my experience of God is that is not the nature of God. God is the definition of love. But I'm one of the things that I've said for a long time is that we're all just kind of grasping in the dark. Like, we'll never understand the full nature of God. And even in the, the lattice, where I'm trying to really reach there and cover the years, science fiction from 2030 to 2085. By 2085, we still don't understand the nature of God. I don't think it's possible to understand the nature of the prime creator, which created the universe and this, whether people believe we're living in a simulation or not. I'm not a simulation believer, but that it's rooted so deeply in love. I read this book last year called Why Buddhism is True. And it was a science book. It's really a science book. He was talking about natural selection and how the brain developed. But he concludes the book at the end. I'm forgetting the name of the author right now. I read so many books last year, but he concludes the book at the end. He says, if everybody would do what the Buddhists did and would meditate, and I ended last year visiting Bhutan. That's where we went on our family trip, which was amazing. They measure themselves on gross happiness, essentially, as opposed to GDP. And, as I concluded that book, he says, when people meditate, they get to glimpse that everything is rooted in love. So let's be thankful that no matter what our reality is, because he's like, look, I'm going to tell you, I don't understand what consciousness is. And all the consciousness researchers, they really, they don't understand what it is. There is no unified view on what consciousness is, and how it happens and why this happens at all. But is the basis for everything we cherish as human beings. He said, what if our reality was one where the more you meditated, the more you tried to get in that state? You actually like, oh my gosh, it's dark and scary in there. It's like evil or whatever.
Right.
He said, the reality is one where if everybody on the planet did what the Buddhist practice, they would see that our actual reality is deeply rooted in love.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such a beautiful spiritual ending to the book, even though he was attempting to write a book just purely on science.
That's so interesting. And it's bringing up, I don't know if now is the time, but, there is going to be a research study into relational awakening. And they're looking at the science of awakening. Yeah. And I'm all for that. I have zero issue with science. Sometimes what I do, people will say, it looks like magic. I'll track other people's body through my own body. I can know things that if I was in my ordinary mind, I should not be able to know. And I think that magic is just future science, the science of the future. Yeah. And so I have been very interested and jokingly said, somebody put some nodes on my head, because what's going on in the brain? Do I think it's only going on in the brain? I do not. I think it's so much bigger than the brain, but the brain is a part of it.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And so I would love to find out, because people ask me, what is going on? Because they're having this expanded state. And I'm like, I don't know. Right, yeah. I do know on one level, and I can meet them at that level for sure. But like what's happening in your brain, we've got to get some research around that. And so there are two scientists, Ben Baird and Jose Milan at the University of Texas. They probably have very different philosophical views than I do about the nature of consciousness. And guess what? I don't care.
Right.
It's not that important.
Right.
We really meet.
You're not in a tribal war in terms of the definition of consciousness here.
I'm not.
Yeah.
What I really care about, Brett, is the alleviation of suffering. What we see is people hurting people because they're hurting. And there's a disease of the mind. And so if we can create modalities that help alleviate suffering, I'm all for it. And I can tell you that Relational Awakening, this practice that I teach, and that this healing modality that I practiced for many years, alleviates suffering. And so when people have that direct contact with this expanded level of mind, their perceptual abilities begin to kind of expand as well. Their identity is less attached to the separate self, and these habits begin to fall away. So when that happens, I think there is something happening in the brain. And so these two scientists are going to begin to study it. And we're currently have a proposal out to the Consciousness Foundation.
Well, it's super exciting to me because, I've long held with this exponential of exponential curves, AI, quantum computing, robotics, which would be the embodiment of AI, and brain-computer interfaces. It is going to also accelerate us discovering the nature of what makes us most human. It's not just about productivity.
Right.
It's going to accelerate all scientific discovery. So our actual reality, what the ancient mystics saw and what we've experienced through, psychedelic journeys, near-death experiences, through your practice of helping people shift, meditation is going to be discovered. And that is what the lattice is all about, is this unification of humanity in discovering the actual reality that we're in. And so I'm all for it. It's going to be very exciting to see what happens with that study. And just the studies in general. There's more and more studies now on psychedelic research and all types of, one thing that's you talk about suffering that is just so surprising to me, but you just see it all around once you start to really pay attention, is the dogmatic separation of things, whether it's science and spirituality or all types of things like, constructs of race or religion versus just the unification of that we're 99.9% the same DNA-wise across the planet. But on the topic of consciousness alone, you would have been canceled as an academic if you wanted to study that like 10 to 20 years ago. And it is the most fundamental thing.
To be honest, I think there's still
really, you think even today,
yeah, maybe in some places. Yeah. And I just have to say, my scientific term for what's happening when I work with people is reality gets bendy. That's my term for it.
Yeah, it does. I was feeling that. It was getting very bendy.
It gets very bendy, doesn't it?
I wanted to just close my eyes and go into a meditative state, honestly.
You can. There's a strong pull. It has a gravitational pull, which means that this level of mind is more potent than the ordinary level of mind. And the scientists who are creating this study, and they're writing the proposal now, they sat with me and reality got really bendy. And I want to say that they have the humility and the curiosity to say, this is very different than maybe what we expected or what our paradigms have taught us about the nature of reality. And instead of kind of shutting that down and being threatened by it, they push forward and said, let's find out what's going on.
All right.
And I'm excited about that. And it was fun to actually get to sit with, one's a neuroengineer, so the computer-brain interface, I think, is an area of his specialty. And the other is a cognitive neuroscientist. Yeah. So it was really fun to get to sit with them and see what what happened when they went into that expanded state and just sitting together.
So I'd love to ask you your opinion on, you have this ability to really understand consciousness at a different level than most people. The way you shifted me and the way you were shifting, I mean, I really felt that. And without consciousness, there is no unique human experience at all, or collective human experience.
Right.
As Chris Beisch would say, that was a fantastic episode of the podcast. One of my favorite books is LSD and the Mind of the Universe, Diamonds from Heaven. And, he was helping in his journeys heal the collective human psyche.
That's right.
The suffering throughout history. And that wasn't his intention going into the journey. As it happened, and it surprised him, as he talked about on the podcast, as he really was on a quest to find out what our ultimate reality was. And towards the end of his quest, he found out there is no end.
Right.
And he's never going to fully be able to decode it. But that was a great episode. I know you're a fan of him too.
I'm a big fan. I'm really looking forward to watching that.
Yeah. A lot of people just naturally assume in the AI field that AI will be as conscious as we are. I was at TED AI last year. I talked about this after coming back from San Francisco. And one of the things that I was struck by there is there was a philosophy of AI panel, and it was all these technologists, and they either assumed AI was already sentient or would very soon be as sentient as we are. And there wasn't a single consciousness researcher on that panel. There wasn't a single humanitarian on that panel.
Wow.
There wasn't a single spiritual leader on that panel. It was just technologists talking with technologists. And so I thought it was a big miss, because it's, as I talked about on episode 12 with Anil, who really is a phenomenal, scientist. We don't even know what consciousness is, so how can we just assume we're going to create it in machines? But
right.
How do you even think about that in terms of, is artificial intelligence going to be sentient?
So I have to just tell you up front that I'm really ignorant about what's going on in this field. I know this is something you know a lot about and care deeply about, but it isn't something that's part of my everyday reality. So here I am just talking in a sort of abstract way.
Yeah.
And I have to say that I got what I'm about to say from someone else.
Okay, no problem. Hey, full disclosure. Yeah. We're all learning from each other.
Yes. Absolutely. So I'm about to say something that might sound smart, but it didn't come out of this brain.
Came out of the collective field, though.
It came out of the collective field. And I'm not sure this is going to answer the question you're asking, but it's going to answer a question that I think is important, which is, I think that we have the capacity for precognition. I think it's built into consciousness. And there have been studies that show that people, when they're shown images on a screen that are disturbing, that before the image arises, that there's a physiological response. Yeah. That's a form of precognition. Yeah. Now we could go off the loop and talk about precognitive dreams and access to information, even on an everyday level, where someone's going to call you and 2 seconds later they call you. Yeah, so that's the non-locality of consciousness, just kind of in everyday life. I think people have these experiences regularly. And what's so amazing about this renaissance that's happening is that people are talking about them and they're not being silenced. So that's exciting.
I had an amazing dream last night. I want to go back to the topic of AI, but just as an aside.
I think this is on topic.
Okay, this is on topic then. Very sadly, last week we had our almost 16-year-old dog pass away. We had 3 dogs.
Sorry.
Her name was Esther, and her brother Mordechai passed away just a few months ago.
I'm sorry, Brad.
But last night she visited me in a dream. And she was so radiant and shimmering and silvery. I mean, she's kind of like a brown, well, a black with, brown and some white highlights, dog. But last night she was like in this shimmering silver light. And I knew it was real. I knew it was her soul, showing me from, heaven, consciousness, whatever you want to call that. But it was just so beautiful and so lucid.
Yes.
And, that is an extremely human, divine experience.
You know what? It is so human.
Yeah.
And these incidents I'm talking about of precognition, also very common.
Yeah.
And so when you ask me if computers are going to develop consciousness, I think the true test of that is if they become precognitive. That's
an interesting angle. I've never actually heard someone think of it that way with computers. I think that's very smart, whoever you're talking with about that.
Whoever that was. That tells really... you about my human brain and the capacity to remember,
right, to remember who it was.
Information.
But let me tell you why it matters to me.
Yes.
There's a lot of dystopian that's been pushed at us. The right. Terminator movie series, the Matrix movie series.
Yes.
The story of Gollum in Prague. It's old Jewish folklore, right. And just on and on and on about that machines would destroy us.
Right.
And, it's fear. It's the same old serpent of fear, as I talk about over and over again in my book, Love Conquers Fear, which is coming out later this year, which I can't wait till that comes out. I put so much heart and soul into that. And really, my purpose, for this podcast and the book is trying to help humanity have that heart shift.
Yes.
So the reason it matters to me is that I've had this gift since I was young to be able to see where technology is going to go. Mm-hmm. That's something I know I was incarnated for this purpose, to help build a better world through technology. And that what I'm doing now is the meta-thematic of my entire career. Like all the things that have happened are to get to this point and be able to help in the way that I can. And, I'm crossing all types of streams in this podcast. It's like Ghostbusters, don't cross the streams. I mean, there's capitalism, there's spirituality, right. There's psychedelics, there's consciousness. There's all these things that people would stay kind of in one swim lane and like never allow those two things to merge. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm operating from this place of love, conquering my own fear and living in authenticity. I'm doing it because it really matters, because our ability through AI and the acceleration that's causing, that accelerates everything. It accelerates our scientific discoveries. It, of course, accelerates our productivity, which is where a lot of the focus is on. But our ability to manifest abundance for everyone on the planet, which is either metaphorically or mystically, however you want to think of that, or both, is the merger of heaven and earth.
Yeah.
Creating abundance in a country like Chad, which has $660 of GDP per person, is achievable in your and my lifetime. We're going to create a world of unlimited energy. The sun is staring at us in the face every day. It's the big fusion light bulb reactor in the sky that has billions and billions of years of life on it. And 18 seconds of the sun's rays that fall on this planet would power the world's energy needs for over a year.
Amazing.
18 seconds. We just need to figure out the material science to break through. And, one major thing that happened, not that long ago was we decoded the protein folding problem with Google DeepMind, created something called AlphaFold. That now decodes proteins to the point where we can create medicines to pretty much solve almost any disease. maybe any disease. And there will be a Google DeepMind project for material science, if there's not already, that we haven't heard about. And solar is just absolutely in that exponential curve. You can see it with the cost declines, with the solar starts. Even though we just survived yet another kind of icing over in Austin. As we're recording this, right. There's still ice on the driveway, so I walked down with you
that's right.
so that it was safe. The near failure of our power grid in Texas.
Yeah, like 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
Where it was literally within a few minutes to maybe as much as an hour of our entire grid failing, which would have taken like a month to reboot, were the projections. That created a massive increase in solar starts. So it's just all over the state. We're actually, I think, leading in solar starts out of the entire nation. This promise of we can create abundance, the way we do it is through technology. The way we've evolved as human beings has always been through technology, starting with the discovery of fire. The challenge is that we have to do it in a way that we don't destroy ourselves. And we have to transcend this fear-based zero-sum mindset.
Right.
This kind of competition between, all types of things that really sit in that realm of dogma, of separation. And you were talking about alleviating suffering earlier, and I almost don't want to bring up this stat with you, but I'll bring up this stat just because I think it's important. One of the diseases we have is we've created 13,000 nuclear weapons worldwide. What percentage of today's nuclear arsenal worldwide do you think it would take to destroy all the medium to large size cities in the entire world? And it would send the world into a nuclear holocaust for around a decade. Literally, like the Matrix, the skies would be completely dark and we wouldn't be able to see the sun. What percentage do you think that is?
I'm thinking a very small percent.
Yeah, it's 2%.
I was going to say 1, but 2.
Okay, so we have 50 times the amount that we already need. These are real weapons. These are psychological tricks we're playing against each other. And the acronym for that, do you know what the acronym is? There's actually an acronym.
No.
It's a DoD term.
No.
It's MAD.
Wow.
Stands for mutually assured destruction.
Right.
So it's literally like we're admitting that we're insane.
We're insane.
That we have this insanity in this world of form that could destroy us.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to transcend that. And this is the vision I've received is really, this is God's final exam for humanity. If we transcend this period and unite, then we have this unprecedented technological takeoff, and we'll find out where the laws of physics actually are. We don't really understand what the limits are. Can we conquer, faster than light speed travel? We don't know. We only know what 4% of the universe is made of, as we talked about in episode 2 with Mark Gover, one of my favorite authors. 96% we call dark energy and dark matter. We have no idea what it is.
What it is.
And so just the love for all of humanity in my heart, and this desire for all of us to make it to this age of abundance for everyone on the planet, the pathway to get there is through technology. We already live today in 2026 so much better than we did in 1926 or 1826. So much better. Like, we would already appear, if we could teleport them here and show them everything we have, they would be like, you have everything, like we evolutionarily, humanity, Homo sapiens, we've only had electricity for 0.1% of our time on this planet. 99.9% of the time, we didn't even have electricity. So that's an abundance that we can't even imagine having, 400 years ago. And we've been around for 300,000 years in terms of Homo sapiens. Hominids have been around for 4 million years. The Earth is 4.54 billion years old, right? And the sun's 4.6 billion years old. So So we're coming such a small amount of evolutionary time.
Yeah.
And, what I've seen is that if we make it, then we get access to the rest of the universe. It's like we become one of the species that prove that love could conquer our fear, that we could unite. And then, as far as we know, the universe is infinite, and we get to propagate it with love. It's a love-centered, approach, as opposed to the zero-sum approach, which will not work in this exponential curves. We're going to have to cross over that threshold where we make that fateful choice. And I think the way it's going to happen is we'll be able to see it. I think we'll be able to see it, and there will be a bottoms up and tops down pressure to choose it. Mm-hmm. Like we'll be able to see the end of disease. We'll be able to see unlimited energy. We'll be able to see abundance for everybody on the planet. And it'll be this pressure cooker to have the constructs break down to build up and build each other up. So that's why it matters to me.
Yeah, and it matters deeply.
It's not just a geeky, thing for me. It's like,
no,
it is the path for us to make it. And I think that the rise and the consciousness awakening underway, all the things that are happening there, coinciding with the rise of AI, it's not a coincidence.
I don't think it's a coincidence either, and I think it matters as well. And you're right, we have everything, but we don't have peace of mind. Mm-hmm. And no matter how much we have on the physical plane, if we don't have that, then we'll continue to be, so consumptive and combative. Mm-hmm. And so you're right, as the technology evolves, consciousness must evolve along with it in order for us to use it in a way that is wise and humane for the benefit of all beings. Yeah. So that's really the question. You're like, which way are we going to go? I think, and this is an opinion, I'm not making a statement of fact, but I think it's very interesting that this capacity that I have or that I'm teaching is coming online at this time as well.
Oh, yeah.
So I have a teaching partner. So Relational Awakening is taught in a relational container. So I have a partner, and his name is Adam Ortman. And he jokingly says that I run the Get Her Done School of Awakening.
Right, that's funny.
Which I really love. And he has a long history of contemplative practice. And one of the things that made him throw his hat into this ring was the fact that it was so quick. Meaning you can go on long meditation retreats. And let me tell you, I'm 100% for long meditation retreats. And you can learn deep spiritual practices, and you can go on, psychedelic journeys. But the beautiful thing about this particular modality, which is on offer here, is that it's immediate. And my sense is, friend, we do not have time. We do not have time for the masses to go away on 3-month meditation retreats. They're just not going to do it. And so what I have to offer is something that is very immediate. You immediately have the experience of interconnectedness.
Right.
Now, what you do with that experience, whether you just tuck it into your back pocket or decide to devote yourself to being able to maintain connection to that, to live from that level of mind and love from that level of mind at all times, that's the choice that's up to you. And it doesn't mean that you have to study Relational Awakening. There's other options out there. So this is on offer. But it is very quick. And up until this time, we've had to do things that you had to kind of pull yourself out of your everyday life in order to learn. And I taught meditation actually for many years. And what I realized is that very few of the people that I taught, and I taught over 1,000 people, I didn't add it up, probably several thousand people how to meditate, that few of them actually would do it in a sustained way. And so I was like, you know what? I began teaching this other method, which is just immediate, and then developing a community of practice where people were shifting, and it becomes, and this is going to sound amazing, self-organizing and self-sustaining. That's the nature, I think, really, of how consciousness functions.
Yeah.
And so it's very quick. And I'm interested through these studies, like at the University of Texas and anywhere else I might go, in broadening the scope of it, making it even more accessible. I'm just one little person. I started this program. It's very small. And I'm interested in increasing the scope because I think this is something that is scalable. And so people have the immediate experience of that oneness. And the ethic is baked into it. If I am what you are, not conceptually, this is not a song we hold hands and sing, although I love that, but this is an actual direct experience. Then how do you live? This changes how people live. It changes the choices they make. There's a very strong component in the teaching of connecting to their vow. Brett, you are connected to your vow, whether or not you would use that word or not.
Oh, I do use that word. I know this is my divine calling.
This is your divine calling, divine calling. And so in the teachings of Relational Awakening, people have to get plugged in with their vow, their divine calling, and then live from there. And so there's something about this that's very efficient and very effective, and I think it's being called for right now because the stakes are quite high and we don't have a lot of time. What I do have a lot of is hope. And when I'm with you, it's strengthened.
No, thank you.
And I think that's the beautiful thing about coming together in these formats or just around the table, is that we're not overcome by the fear that is being pumped out into the airways.
Right.
And so you're pumping something out that's very different, very important, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Brett.
Yeah, thank you. This was amazing. Yeah, so good to be with you again, experience that again.
Yeah.
Although I want to try to convince you to do a longer session. We'll work on that. I know you're not doing individual practice, but I love your heart and I love what you're doing, and you know it is a very important part of humanity's awakening. So
yeah.
Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is amazing. Well, thanks again, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of Love Conquers Fear. Stay tuned. I have just an absolutely incredible list of guests coming on, fully booked up. So I'll keep it coming and keep the love coming. I had this beautiful, beautiful conversation yesterday with this woman whose heart has really shifted as a result of this podcast. And I have these types of messages daily, but this one really struck a nerve with me. And one of the things she wanted to ask me, because she was a very, very spiritual person, very deeply rooted in that, is how should that touch the job market for her? And my advice to her is stay in your authenticity. There are more and more leaders out there that are willing to, quote unquote, be bold and talk about that they're spiritually rooted. And, don't settle. And I would have that advice for anybody listening to this. You don't have to compartmentalize. You can be your whole self and have a career. It was just such a cool conversation. And so big shout out to her. She knows who she is. I'm not going to disclose her name. But really appreciate all of the beautiful messages all of you have been sending me. It fills me with a lot of love. And you know why I'm doing this, so please spread the word. There are no ads on here. There's no financial incentive. It's all about helping humanity have a heart shift so that we make it to this age of abundance for everyone on this planet. Thank you all.